Vikings talk. It's Purple Daily on Score North and ScoreNorth.com. Purple Daily, presented by Surly Brewing Company.
But I think more than that, if you've ever had a boss who was rigid, and I think Zimmer's a good coach, but a little rigid, and you didn't think he trusted you, I absolutely think it affects performance. And I think Kirk Cousins, whose personality can shrink in big games anyway, if you look at their season last year, they lost a couple of overtime games. They were just not very good late. And I think that's going to be the game changer.
Well, that is a nice microphone Colin Cowherd has right there.
Wow, LRE20, what we got there?
It's awfully familiar there.
Yeah.
It's awfully familiar. It's the microphone of brilliant hot take artists, apparently. Judging by the people that... yes. Phil Mackey here for hot takes into an RE320.
Do you want to give your best hot take possible? Are you lacking for hot takes?
It's weird. So I'm looking at Shure as an possible microphone sponsor of the show because I have a brand new Shure microphone. So we got conflicting microphone sponsors on Mackey.
Looks like you're cheating on your Shure right now into that RE320.
I don't know what you're talking about. This is just a microphone that's in the studio.
That's right. I know our audience loves in-depth, nerdy microphone
really
talk
I
here.
can't tell you how intrigued I am.
Headphones, I got a whole thing.
Oh, yeah, let's hear it. Let's get all the equipment out of the way.
This is Purple Daily Vikings entertainment, where we just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die. That's why we reject 500 football around here. It's been going on way too long. Actually, they haven't even been above 500 in 900 days or so. But the show is presented by Surly Brewing Company and also TCL, which has award-winning TVs for any budget, any space, all with stunning picture quality. Plus, TCL makes more than just TVs. They offer mobile products, audio devices, home appliances. TCL, bringing you joy and simplicity through innovative technology. Learn more at TCL.com. Quick announcement before we get into today's training camp preview episode, which asked the question, is the offensive line really fixed? Or to what extent is the offensive line fixed? We will dive in. We also have some interesting Madden ratings that have come out. Another position group today that says something about a couple Vikings players. But we have another Purple Daily related announcement. Realistic Randy making his return every Monday for the 2022 season, starting on August 1st. That's right. Realistic Randy and Declan are going to be firing up a podcast here as part of the Purple Daily podcast feed and the Purple Daily YouTube channel every single Monday, called Realistic Randy Rants. And also, we finally figured out a name for the Jesse Pierce and Thor Nystrom podcast. It'll be 2 days a week, starting again here on the Purple Daily podcast feed and YouTube channel, first week in August. Figure, what's the rallying cry around here? We want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die. And so the show is going to be called Before We Die with Jesse and Thor, part of the Purple Daily network of daily Vikings entertainment. So, and maybe another announcement or two coming up here as we expand the empire that is Purple Daily.
It's growing very fast.
Yeah. So thank you. You guys are just an awesome audience. Even the people that just hate listen to us or watch us every day, the Cousins Crusaders that think that we are idiots, we appreciate all of this discussion and banter, and we're looking forward to training camp and the season shortly here. All right, boys, unless you guys have any takes on what we just talked about there, should we get into our training camp preview topic of the day here?
Let's do it.
On microphones, what I'd like to bring... Let's go.
Judd's like, I've got a tin can here with a string attached to it.
Is it a cardioid function? Is it a bidirectional function?
Can I please get a nicer micro? Who do I need to talk to around here?
All right, here's the question. Training camp preview topic of the day. To what extent do you think the offensive line is actually fixed? So I'll give you the depth chart, and then you go ahead and go anywhere you want with this, Judd. So left tackle, Christian Darrisaw entering year 2. Left guard, Ezra Cleveland entering year 3. Center, Garrett Bradbury entering year 4. And then right guard is just kind of a hodgepodge right now of you got 2 veterans and Jesse Davis and Chris Reed, and then Ed Ingram is your second-round pick. So there's a lot of options there. I guess Oli Udoh, technically, he was the starting right guard last year. And Brian O'Neill, the established and now highly paid starting right tackle, with Oli Udoh, Austin Schlottman, which is a great football name, Schlottman. Blake Brandel, Wyatt Davis. I don't know if anyone has seen him in the last 12 months or so. and Kyle Hinton and a couple other guys. So that's kind of the pool of players, starters and backups that we're looking at starting in a week from now. So to what extent do you think the offensive line is actually fixed?
Scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to go through each position and from a starter standpoint, give you, as training camp gets set to start, my thought as far as the number goes, okay?
Okay.
Brian O'Neill, right tackle. And this is not saying he's this good. It's saying I have the confidence. So just to be clear, 9 of 10. Like, I have complete confidence that he is a very solid player, that he's good, that he might be on the precipice of being a Pro Bowl type of guy. Like, he's he's turned out to be a great pick by Spielman and company. So I put a 9 on him. At left tackle on Darisaw, just because I don't know as much yet, I put a 7 there. But it's growing.
Wow.
It's going upward. It's trending upward. Like,
Yeah,
I like what I saw. Unfortunately, after year 1, I probably would have put a 9 on Khalil back then. So I need to see a bit more. O'Neill has established a credibility that deserves credit. Darisaw still needs to get there. He, quite frankly, has to prove, because he didn't play at the start of 2021 because of injury, he has to prove that he can stay healthy. I think if he can, he's definitely 1,000% an ascending player. I put a 7. Ezra Cleveland, in my opinion, I put a 7 there as well. I think Ezra Cleveland gets unfairly dumped on as being part of the problem with the guards and center. And look, he might not be perfect, but this kid went from a left tackle in college to a right guard his first year, and he was basically plopped in because the right guard was such a mess, and unfortunately that continued last season as well. And then he got moved to left guard. And so he's still, again, like Darisaw, in my opinion, an ascending player. But I feel like it's guilt by association because the interior of the line is so bad that we just think they all suck. And I don't think that's fair.
Yeah.
I think Cleveland can certainly improve, but I don't think that he should be lumped in with the guys I'm about to get to, especially this one in particular. Center, Garrett Bradbury, I give it 2. I have, until you show me that you can pass protect. Look, the Vikings clearly think with this new coaching staff and the offensive staff that they can get more there. And I'm not exactly sure why. And until they prove something where I say, oh, now I get it, Kirk delivers the ball quicker, I don't know. Bradbury has, who I think says he's gained like 10 to 15 pounds, doesn't get basically lifted off the line of scrimmage. I give him a 2. I just don't trust it. I don't trust it, and I feel that it's the one thing that, barring injury to other players, the Cousins Crusaders are going to come back to. Well, look at Bradbury. He still sucks. It's the one I don't get. And then right guard, as Phil said, there's a lot to pick from. Now, does that make it good? I don't know. I trust it more, though, than certainly what we saw last season. I'm just going to give that a flat 5.5 out of 10 right now because I'd like to assume that it's definitely going to be improved. It's not like there is a definitive starter who we know is going to be good, but unfortunately, and this is damning with faint praise, it can't be much worse, or it can't be worse, hopefully, knock on wood, than last year. And so I just continue to come back to my biggest question mark, and where I guess I would say, because it's such an important position on the line where I'm not sure it's fixed, center.
Okay, I want to do an exercise with you here because this is, I think I agree here mostly. I think I might actually have Darisaw a little higher. I might have him like a 7.5 or an 8 because he really played well.
That's fair.
Just considering the slow start injury wise, he had the core surgery. It was not an ideal start to his Vikings career. And by the end, he's facing some really nasty defensive fronts and was holding his own pretty well the last 5 or 6 games of the season. So I think he's an ascending player.
I agree.
It's hard to disagree on Bradbury at this point. I think I would probably go a little higher than 2 out of 10 just because I do feel like a new system and coaches are going to they see something. They could go sign J.C. Treader if they wanted to.
Yeah.
No, although nobody has, which is odd. I think maybe there's just too many concerns about his injury history. And so I think I agree on this. I might bump Ezra Cleveland down a little from 7 out of 10. But he's an ascending player too. He was a second-round pick, 3 years ago?
Yep.
So here's the exercise I want to do. So you have the 2022 Vikings offensive line. Let's just do a little math here. So on a scale of 1 to 10 trustworthiness, they got a 7 plus a 7 plus a 2 plus a 5.5 plus a 9 divided by 5. So your average, let's see here, 14 plus 2 plus 5.5 plus 9 equals, your average is a 6 out of 10 in terms of trustworthiness or comfort or whatever it is, which is still kind of the last time, according to Pro Football Focus, who's been tracking and grading offensive line units since 2006. The last time the Vikings had it's happened twice. Since 2006, they've had 2 top 10 pass protection units. 2013, oddly, just kind of a random year, they were 6th. But the most notable one was 2009. They were 2nd in 2009. Brett Favre, 38, 39 years old. And their offensive line was very much more solidified. They had just, you weren't revolving door at 3 different positions. So I want you to do real quick this same exercise. You covered that team. You were as plugged into that team as anyone who covered it in 2009. Give me your 1 through 10 comfort ratings for the 2009 version of these guys, because I want to compare. That's basically the best pass protection unit we've seen in the last 20 years of Vikings football.
Sure.
Bryant McKinney was the left tackle.
Extremely talented, and considering the guy that he played to his right, I would give him an 8 back then.
Yep.
Okay.
I might even go a little higher, but yeah.
But he was not motivated by football, but he was really good at it.
Yes. Okay. Steve Hutchinson.
10.
Yeah.
10
Yeah,
out
no
of 10.
problem.
He's a 10 out of 10.
The 2009 version of John Sullivan.
Are we doing at the end of that year or at the beginning? Like this time of year?
Editor's choice. Your choice.
I'd give him a 7.
Okay.
Yeah.
He was
Right
was
there.
competent.
By the
solid.
end of the year,
Yeah.
he was a 7.
Okay.
Again, improved by the fact that Hutch was to his left.
Anthony Herrera, who split sometime in that era with Artis Hicks, but I think Herrera by this point had taken over as the right
Yeah, he
guard.
was a 6. He was a 6. I drop him a little bit, but not a lot. He was solid.
Just kind of a guy. And then Phil Loadholt before the injuries.
He was a 7. If I gave McKinney an 8, I would give Phil a 7.
Okay, so we're gonna go this. Math here: 7 plus a 6 plus a 7. Carry the 14 there. So 7.5. So your comfort level there was a 7.5 out of 10. It's a 6 out of 10. It's not too far off. It's not too far.
Well, there's always going to be question marks.
Well, if Bradbury,
For sure.
this is the thing. It is as our friend Eric Eager he's the head of the research department at Pro Football Focus, as he would tell you, it is a weak link unit. It's not, and the Rams are a great example. The Rams didn't have any all-pro guys or pro bowlers on the offensive line last year, but they didn't have any weak links either. And some of it was the system and the coaching. So it's a combination of different things. And the quarterback helps too. There's ways that the quarterback can make your offensive line look better.
And Favre helped.
Yeah.
Like
absolutely.
Favre knew how to change things around to his favor.
And credit to Kirk Cousins, because 2 years ago, I believe he had like the 6th or 7th most self pressures, where there was a pressure, but it was more he held onto the ball too long or whatever it was.
Right.
And he cut those way down last year. So he went to school on his own shortcomings in inviting pressure.
Yep.
So that's a good thing. Just to go a little deeper on the history of the Vikings pass protection, according to PFF grades, it's pretty incredible, and not incredible in a good way. So these are the rankings 1 through 32, starting with last year and going back through time, of the Vikings pass protection unit: 27th, 29th, 25th, 27th, 12th in 2017 with Case Keenum.
Yep.
30th, 25th, 23rd, 6th in 2013.
Yep.
16th, 17th, 17th, 2nd in 2009. 18th, 25th, and 27th going back to 2006, which is the first year that these grades were available to the public. So only in those, 16 years, only twice has the Vikings pass protection unit been top 10. and then only 3 times have they been top 15 in the league, going back to 2006. That's amazing.
But the most intriguing thing about that is the fact that look at the 2 years that they were higher, and it's a direct correlation with your quarterback. Keenum could move. Like again, so this to me is it's an indictment for sure, and I'm not trying to absolve an offensive line that far too often has had some problems.
Yeah, you're just trying to blame Kirk for everything.
Yeah,
But
that's
it's
fine.
also
Which is fine, or whatever.
No, I'm going back
No,
to.
it's okay. Just blame Kirk.
I'm going back to the Tavares days, the Kelly Holcomb starts, the Gus Frerotte starts. I'm going back to the fact that when we're talking about quarterbacks that know how to move and know when to get rid of the ball, it's a different game. And that at least jacks your lineup a little bit as far as that ranking goes.
Well, and so T-Jack could move a little bit, and Ponder could move too.
Yeah,
and
but
if
they
you
didn't
look
know
at
what to do.
Well, but what I was going to say is if you look at some of those years, so take the Favre year out, and then Ponder was still around 2011, 12. Those offensive lines were 16th, 17th, 17th, 18th, not as bad as 27th, 29th. Now, I think what PFF would tell you is, listen, we are stripping out if a quarterback moved because he's mobile. That's not factored in here. But I have to think that there are some things that bleed in and out of if a quarterback escaped pressure, there was no pressure. Like I got to think those things blend and bleed together a little bit.
Correct.
So it's just been a long time since the Vikings have had a multi-year stretch of really good offensive lines. I think, and I don't, obviously there was no PFF grades in the late 90s, but when they had Jeff Christie and Randall McDaniel and they had some of those dudes, they had offensive lines in the 90s for sure,
And eye test wise, I can tell you, I think that 2006 line was pretty good because that's Burke, Hutch, McKinney, was Herrera here then?
Well, the 06 line was graded really bad in pass protection.
Right, but that's what I'm saying is I believe that is probably a direct correlation, hand in glove, to quarterback play as well.
Brad Johnson.
So like that line was not bad. That line suffered probably because too often Brad, who couldn't really move by that point in his life, would hang on to the ball. Eye test wise, I can tell you the last 2 years, and especially 2 years ago, were incredibly rough. Like, I'm not going to sit here and blame Kirk entirely. That's not even close to being fair. But I think it's a year-by-year, case-by-case basis, too. Because when you have Steve Hutchinson on your line and the pass protection's that bad, it's not just like, well, the line sucks. Yeah. It's factors beyond that, which, to what you're saying, and I'm sure it's true, is it's probably hard to strip out and separate what's on the quarterback and what's exactly just flat out on the offensive line.
Well, there's a couple other factors here in play too that I want to dive into with you. Just what's sort of the future of this offensive line, and compare it to some of the groundwork that they weren't doing 5 or 10 years ago. But let's talk about if you're an offensive lineman, maybe looking to lose some weight.
Stripping it down, right?
Step right up.
Drop that weight. And right now you're saying, but Judd, how do I do it? And I'm going to tell you right now, Livia Weight Control Centers. Ladies and gentlemen, the man you are looking at right now, it's me. And now you're saying, my God, Judd, when did you dress like that? Saturday, niece gets married. I get all dolled up. But most importantly, clothes that didn't fit 6 months back all fit now. It fits perfect. And that is because of the now family experience that we've all had. Dawn down just about 12 pounds. I'm down 40 pounds. And here's the best part. As you can see in that photo, I am maintaining the weight loss. And right now you're saying, how do I do it, Judd? And I'm going to tell you, it's as easy as the Simple Start Plan for only $59. Get the support online or in person, whichever is most convenient for you. 855-GO-LIVIA, livia.com, livea.com, if you want to look like the man in that picture. And it really is me, too. I mean, I just don't dress.
It's not your stunt double.
It's not my stunt double. It's not my brother. It's not my twin. I really do dress.
It's not a Photoshop job.
Yeah. I think that was my first time in a suit, in all candidness, probably in like 5 years.
We were trying to figure that out. When's the last time we saw Judd in a suit?
Or if you're going to have a button in or a tie on.
Pre-COVID. But I mean, I don't even think it was pre-COVID I wore one much. So anyway. lose the weight.
Well, and since
feel
we're
good.
talking about getting areas of our life handled here, don't be ashamed, guys, because ED affects a lot of different men in the greater Minneapolis area, and that's where Valley Park Medical Clinic is stepping up to help you. Their approach is medical, it's surgery-free, drug-free, and non-invasive, and the team is highly trained, which is good. You want to hear that when it comes to this area of your life. They'll work with you in a discreet manner, and it'll make you feel right at home so you can ask any question in a professional and confidential environment. Let's get ED handled at valleyparkmedicalclinic.com, valleyparkmedicalclinic.com. So between 2007 and 2017, and this is what gives me hope for the Vikings to finally have maybe a sustained stretch here of good offensive line play or good pass protection, because we should also distinguish they've actually had some pretty good run blocking offensive lines over the years, many more than the pass protection units. And some of that's self-inflicted because, especially during the Mike Zimmer era, they've been on the hunt for smaller, more nimble offensive linemen that can get out to that second level zone run blocking scheme, Dalvin Cook, etc. That's right. Football. Zone run blocking scheme. Instead of maybe having bigger, bulkier guys that are harder to forklift off the line of scrimmage in pass protection. But if you go back to 2007 through 2017, a decade-long stretch where the Vikings drafted only 2 offensive linemen in the first 3 rounds of the draft in all of those years combined.
Yeah.
Phil Loadholt and Matt Khalil. And Loadholt was a really good player. Injuries got him. I think Matt Khalil was a pretty good player, and then the knee injury, he never could quite get back to the same form. So some of it was maybe bad luck. But they weren't taking shots. I don't know what the philosophy was. I think for a long time they figured we can just find guards anywhere, and we're not going to draft a center early. And they had Bryant McKinney for a while, and once they drafted Loadholt, they thought they had 2 sort of pillars at left and right tackle, so that they just stopped taking shots in the draft in the first 3 rounds when it came to offensive linemen. But recently, they've sort of looked at it and said, okay, we're not developing guards. It's been a while since we've had a reliable center. And, Bryant McKinney's been retired for quite some time, and Matt Khalil didn't work out. So they went back to the draft and said, okay, first-round pick on Darisaw, second-round picks on Brian O'Neill, Ezra Cleveland, Ed Ingram. These are 2 different general managers at this point. And then they also spent a first-round pick on Garrett Bradbury, who turned out to be a bust to this point. But I think what I like is that they've poured a lot more resources in the last, 3 years, 4 years, for Brian O'Neill, on just making sure that you're using your draft capital to fix the most important thing. If you don't have an offensive line, how are you going to go and move the ball at a top 5 level? How are you going to go and win games on the road against great defensive fronts? So it gives me some hope that the amount of attention and resources both Spielman and Kwesi going forward are putting into this thing, that it's going to result in some of these guys panning out for a 5, 6, 7 year extended run.
So it feels like the offensive line approach sort of replaced what had been for a while, certainly pre-Zimmer, the cornerback approach. Because in the Childress years, it felt like, and we've talked about this before, but it felt like they would wait till the 3rd round, and then they would take Marcus McCauley, Asher Allen, Josh Robinson, and it'd be like, but they're 3rd round picks, and you were like, yeah, but if you want a really good one, you probably should take one in the first 2 rounds. And I don't know why exactly the philosophy morphed there, but it felt like then that became the offensive line philosophy. And if you want a sneaky little thing that might have helped Spielman get fired, and it certainly didn't reflect well on Mike, but I think a sneaky untalked about thing was last year, when clearly somebody thought Wyatt Davis could play right guard, right? That had to be what they thought. And then they get to training camp, and I think he showed up out of shape, and Zim was like, yeah, I'm not playing him, blah, blah, blah. And the friction that existed between Rick and Mike probably grew worse at that point. But more importantly, right before camp, they had called up Oli Udo, a tackle, and said, be prepared to play guard. That's not like moving a starter to the bullpen. That's not like, okay, we're going to have to change things here, but it's just a slight tweak. That is a position change. That is a huge thing. And then to have to follow through on that was as highly irresponsible. I feel like it didn't get talked about enough. Because it's like, well, he's an offensive lineman, right? Well, no, he's not a guard. He's a tackle. I mean, if you called Brian O'Neill tomorrow and said, "Hey, kid, training camp starts. We're moving you to right guard," he'd be like, "Are you on drugs? What's wrong with you?"
Yeah.
And so, so like in Cleveland's case, at least it was a slow move, right? Like he was drafted as a tackle, trained in at some guard, did some work there, and quite frankly, was a better player. But the irresponsibility to plug in a guy at right guard with, as far as I think we found out, no experience there, and to think it would work, like that gets people fired.
It's amazing too because they knew the problem was staring them in the face for 2018 and 2019 and 2020. Like they knew the first 3 years of Kirk Cousins, this offensive line isn't good enough. We brought in a pretty, immobile, and I don't know what another word would be, but he's statuesque and he's first read. Everything's got to be comfortable. And that's always going to be the thing that follows, I think, Rick Spielman around. And I think even like anyone who criticizes Cousins, us included, right? The ultimate comeback is, well, did they give him the resources? What's the number one resource that you think he would need? And yeah, great wide receivers is one of them, but an offensive line. It's the ultimate comeback to any sort of Kirk Cousins shortcoming. And it's correct. It's correct. Now, are there some things that he could probably do mobility-wise, leadership-wise? Like, yeah, he doesn't have some of those things that other quarterbacks do. And his contract makes it harder to go sign a stud right guard in free agency.
Right.
But how do you look at 2018, 19, 20, and then come back in 2021 with a makeshift right guard, a panicked sort of, Ole Udo, you're going to play right guard. Are you serious?
Right.
It made no sense. So not that they have right guard figured out now, but it does feel like, to bring this conversation back sort of full circle, what is the trust level that they have fixed this offensive line? Darisaw, first-round pick, looked really good at the end of last year. You feel comfortable. You've got that, for now, fixed and on the rise. Brian O'Neill, one of the better right tackles in the league, boom. Ezra Cleveland, he was a second-round pick, got better last year, trustworthy enough, right? The center thing is going to figure itself out here. It is a big elephant in the room. But at least at right guard, they have put two veteran guys in the room. Chris Reed has actually played pretty well at right guard in his career. And a second-round pick in Ed Ingram if you want to go the young route. There's enough guys in that room now. I feel like it's pretty unlikely all three of them are going to be terrible. Mm-hmm. So it'll sort itself out. Maybe it takes until week 4 or 5. Maybe you start the wrong guy and then you have to fix it. But this is the first time I've actually felt like this plan makes sense, except for center. But what does make sense at center is they didn't exercise his fifth-year option, so they kind of acknowledge, okay, we can't fix it all overnight, so we're going to fix this at some point. But it feels like there is a coherent path forward here with some young guys and a mix of veterans that's going to bring this thing maybe not to like the 5th best pass protection unit in the NFL, but something better than 27th, 29th, 25th, and 27th, where it's been the last 4 years. We'll see. So if you have a 6 out of 10 comfort level, I'm probably like a 6.5 or 7. Mm-hmm. I would be, if I could grade the 2009 offensive line in retrospect, I'd be like an 8.5 or a 9 comfort level with Hall of Famer at left guard and a really good center and Bryant McKinney. But this is probably the most comfortable I've been going into a season with this offensive line in the last 3 or 4 years for sure.
I feel like the Judd's confidence level in Ezra, which I get his logic there. I mean, Bradbury's kind of holding him back. I still have question marks. I think he's okay. I think he's solid. But I would have to be really impressed if he can like take that next step up this season. And Bradbury, yeah, I mean it's boom or bust at this point. They're banking that they can scheme him appropriately again. But I think when you're in year 4, of his NFL career, you know who he is. Like he doesn't get pushed around a little bit. You can try to make up for those deficiencies in his own scheme, but I would probably have the offensive line as a whole at the 6. I think 6 is probably the cap where it can be right now.
See, the ultimate comeback for Kevin O'Connell is going to be, all right, you guys are ragging on Garrett Bradbury. Well, we drafted a very similarly sized center. I don't know if he was there when they drafted him, but the Rams drafted Brian Allen in the 4th round, 2018 out of Michigan State. So he wasn't even a first-round talent. And he just, he didn't really do anything in his career until, I don't know if he had an injury in there somewhere, but he didn't even really start until 2019. Then he missed 2020. And then his fourth year, 2021, he became a really good, reliable top 10 starting center. Not the biggest guy in the world. So I think they see some similarities in Brian Allen with the Rams and what Garrett Bradbury could be in this system. And we'll see if they're right or not.
I guess I'd be curious to know how Allen is wired, though, because, I mean, that position is also, because the position itself sucks. Like, it is not fun. Like, you get hit constantly. It's not sexy, right? Like, he ain't doing anything that's fun. And my sense with Bradbury is that part of his struggles are personality. Like, if you think about the guys who have been good, Jeff Christie was as nasty as they come. I mean, he was undersized. There was nothing about him that screamed, he should be a good player. But he would cut you off at the knees. And so I think the thing with Garrett, and I guess my question is not the weight gain, not the physical or not the mental side, because I think he's smart. It is he wired correctly to play that spot? Because offensive line, I think, is you've got at the very least to flip a switch. And if you can't, you've got to accept the fact that you can't get your ass kicked and you have to do whatever it takes not to. And by the way, to be perfectly clear, I would want no part of that position. Like I think it's awful.
I don't know. I think it's kind of, it's cerebral, but it's
cerebral,
physical.
But I mean, you've got to be prepared to get your ass kicked and go back and kick some ass back. That's what you got to do.
That's right, Zolgad.
I love Judd's explanation of what it takes to
But
The trenches,
he is
baby.
right. Center's probably the one position. Like I agree with Phil it is a very intriguing position that we probably kind of sleep on because it's a very important position and you have to be very intelligent to play it. It is like one of the few positions in all of professional sports I want nothing to do with. Being a center sounds terrifying, and there's a lot of responsibility there. I want nothing to do with that.
I'm with you totally.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do it.
I don't really understand why it's so undervalued. I'm sure there are analytical reasons and whatnot, and like, interior offensive line, you can kind of muddy up a little bit more and help each other as opposed to being on an island on the end. You just need an athlete who is also 6'4" and 320 pounds at left tackle. Harder to find those guys. But the importance of that connection to your quarterback and being able to make a read on behalf of the rest of your offensive line and pick up blitzes and all these things, like it is, you can't have a dud at that position and expect to be a really good team.
Yeah.
It's a big problem.
And where I guess I'm a little bit surprised that Treader has not gotten a job is, I mean, it's clear his leg is hanging by a thread. Like it's barely on and he doesn't care. Like he just kept playing through it.
Mm-hmm.
Like the guy didn't miss games. Any other spot outside of line, you can't play. He's just like, tape it up.
Yeah, maybe.
I love that.
I'll see if I can dig into my JC Treader sources.
I'm just getting excited talking about this because
the deal is.
Training camp starts next week, and I just want to go watch guys kick each other's ass.
He's grinding.
But of course, I'm not going to see that. I'm going to see Club Med, but that's okay.
Boys, it's time for a little episode or a segment of What Are People Saying About the Minnesota Vikings? Presented by our friends at Surly Brewing Company. It is the summer of Surly, after all.
Damn right.
Indeed, it is. And guess what? Last night on Twitter again, I got another person who showed me their cans. What looked like a delicious hell wrestling on TV. Hopefully it was a TCL. And look, the summer of Surly is all about your choice. So it can be a furious, a hell. Personally, this time of year, hot out, looking for a nice refreshment, I go Supreme's Logic Bomb. But whatever you drink, make sure that it is abiding by the summer of Surly. Because if you're out on the dock or you're watching TV or you're watching a ball game, Surly is what you should have by your side.
Also, a shout out to our friends over at Dennis Kirk for assisting those of you who like to go out and let that hair down, ride in the wind during these summer months. They have 160,000 parts and accessories in stock. If you're the Ragnar type, let those horns, just put them back aerodynamically and go up and down the freeway in the open air. Same-day shipping on orders placed before 8 p.m. and free shipping on orders over $89. Ride more, wait less at DennisKirk.com. All right, what are people saying about the Vikings? Madden ratings are coming out here.
Oh, yeah, baby.
These are a big
Genius.
deal, too.
Position by position on a daily basis. So
Yeah.
the receivers came out. We'll get to those. We've talked a lot of receiver rankings, but the edge rushers just came out right before we jumped on this episode. So I'm going to unveil these in real time for you here. The top edge rushers in Madden 23. Myles Garrett is in the 99 club. Myles Garrett's a 99.
He's unreal.
TJ Watt, 96. Nick Bosa, 94. Von Miller and Khalil Mack, each at 92. Joey Bosa, 91 with Cam Jordan. DeMarcus Lawrence and Chandler Jones, both at 90. Rashawn Gary at 89. Daniil Hunter at 88, right along with Micah Parsons and Shaq Barrett.
Interesting.
And then J.J. Watt, 87, with Max Crosby and Matthew Judon. Eric Armstead, Brian Burns, Chase Young, and Zadarius Smith all at 86. So according to Madden ratings, Daniil Hunter is 11th, and Zadarius Smith is, I believe, 20th, 19th, or 20th. So two of the top 20 edge rushers. I think both also with upside to, hey, if they can get back to the healthy version of their previous selves. So what do you make of it?
I make of it that if the Vikings are going to be as successful as they want to be, especially on defense, Daniil Hunter probably needs to graduate to, he's 88 right now. Is that what you said, Phil? He needs to get himself, or he needs to be at about a 95, which I think is fair. He's being rightfully penalized by not being healthy, right? But if he can play, I mean, I don't think he's at the point of his career now where he could possibly get back or get to a Myles Garrett rare air territory of a 99. But I think that if he comes back and plays, and look, before he got hurt against Dallas in the 6th game last year, he was playing really, really well. I think it's realistic for him to get to a 95. And if this defense is going to apply the pressure that they want, I think that is where he would probably like to be next year at this time.
In terms of the top 10 guys, like at their peak, I would put Garrett, Watt, both Bosa brothers ahead of Daniil. After that, like, don't get me wrong, Von Miller, Khalil Mack are great players. DeMarcus Lawrence, great player. Cam Jordan, great player. Daniil Hunter is younger than all these guys. So, like, he's just physically has missed time, which pegs him for the rating. But, like, if you were to tell me, all right, injuries are irrelevant, and you can do this on Madden, turn off the injury mode, which defensive end would you put ahead of Daniil Hunter? Those are the only guys, Myles Garrett, the Bosa brothers, and TJ Watt. That's it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, unless I'm wrong here, if you took his 7 healthy games last year, he wouldn't be 11th.
No.
So his Madden rating is a reflection of the time missed, not of his actual current skill set. Mm-hmm. So I am deeply offended by this as someone who hasn't actually played Madden in about 20 years, but still keeps very much tabs on these ratings.
He's played 6 games in 2 years. I agree with it completely.
Now, Zadarius Smith coming off a back end. So are they accounting for, well, after the injury, they're probably not going to be as good? Let them prove that.
Well, then they can come back up next year. I think it's fair.
And the good thing about Madden ratings,
I've never played, and I'm
debating this. The good thing about Madden ratings is as the season goes on, there's always roster updates. So like these numbers are never just set in stone. Like you can only be locked in. There's roster weekly updates that reflect that players that climb up. So like if a rookie, is 74 when the rating comes out and he's just exploding, his rating will be better towards the end of the season.
Like Micah Parsons, for instance, probably wasn't around the top 10.
He feels low to me.
Correct.
Yeah, it's 88. Yeah, he's 12th on this list. He feels
fantastic.
a little low to me too. Can't sneak him above Chandler Jones?
Yeah.
DeMarcus Lawrence? These guys are great players.
Chandler Jones is Raiders now, right? He was Cardinals last year. I think he's
so.
with the Raiders now.
Okay, wide receivers that came out yesterday. Devontae Adams, 99. Cooper Kupp, 98. Tyreek Hill, 97. DeAndre Hopkins, 96. Stephon Diggs, 95. Justin Jefferson, 93. We've gone over so many receiver rankings. I know how everyone feels. Here's my question for this one. Is Stephon Diggs a better receiver than Justin Jefferson, as Madden has them ranked?
Okay, here's where I will... The answer is, on the surface, no, in my opinion. But here's where I will side with what they're doing. Stephon Diggs has a quarterback I would take above Cousins. And as a receiver, you are completely at the mercy, as Devontae Adams will find out, of your quarterback. So, like, if I was just picking a receiver for a game of pickup in my backyard here, like I was going to go outside, and I'm like, hey, Stefan, come on over. Here's a sandwich. JJ, what's up? Here's something to eat. But let's go outside and play football. I would take Jefferson. But the quarterback thing, I think, has to be factored in, right?
I don't think that's what this is about. I think this shouldn't factor in the quarterback.
No.
I'm asking.
If it's factoring in the quarterback, then Devontae Adams is no longer number one.
Right.
Well, it feels to me like
all
that's
due respect
why
to
they
Derek
would
Carr,
do
but
that. But no, I think on the surface, I would take Jefferson before Diggs right now. Dex, what do you think?
Yeah, I would take him too. Diggs has carved out an amazing career, a 5th-round pick, and he is he's the kind of guy that proves like straight line speed and physical size doesn't matter. The dude is an insane route runner. And he's been able to prove that. And he's an awesome wide receiver. But if you're asking me who am I going to take before, I would take Jefferson over Diggs every time.
Yeah, I think I do too. I think part of the reason I take him is because he is younger and right now he's cheaper and all those things. But if it's just receiver versus receiver, I think Justin Jefferson is better than Stefon Diggs. And Stefon Diggs is one of the 5 or 6 best. It's actually kind of amazing you traded one and just got the other right away.
And he fell to you, the 5th receiver to go in the first round of that draft. It's a godsend. It was a complete miracle. The one thing where I agree with Jefferson is I will not be surprised if all goes according to plan next year at this time if he is number 1 on that list.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not fully expecting it, but it will not surprise me. It won't surprise me. And I don't throw out praise like this very often.
I don't know what day the quarterback rankings come out, but if Justin Jefferson becomes number 1 on that list after this year, then old Kirky boy is going to be moving up too because he will have a lot to do with maximizing and the scheme. But it'll be interesting to see. I think they're just releasing a new position group every day here. So
yeah,
it's great
doing this. Mm-hmm.
That's brilliant. Dead time of year. I love it.
So Federated Challenge is on the horizon here later this month. The Federated Challenge has raised $44 million for Big Brothers Big Sisters since 2005. There are 5,000 children in the state of Minnesota that are currently partnered with a BIG, which provides a one-to-one professionally supported mentoring relationship for children in need. If you want to find out how you can become a BIG and influence the life of someone who could use it, federatedchallenge.org. That's federatedchallenge.org. All right, boys. Another show in the books. One show closer to Vikings training camp here. Counting down the days. Looking forward to this. Judd will be out there with his bucket hat on and his sunscreen blob on his nose. Be very exciting.
Wait, do you have a bucket hat? Oh my God, you got a bucket hat.
You got to wear that, dude.
You have to wear it, Judd.
Twins bucket hat. Make this
twins
happen.
Bucket hat.
Brad Childress used to wear the bucket hat.
I know, because it's safer. It's good. Protects the
good.
face. Look at this, too. Nice Twins bucket hat.
Yeah, I think that strap would have fit you better about 8 or 9 months ago. But thanks to your friends at Livia.
At Livia. Yeah, exactly right. You want to look this good? Ladies and gentlemen, Livia. Livia.com.
All right, dudes. We'll see you tomorrow for some Write That Down predictions and an accountability session. Purple Daily.